What's shaking YouTube nights? Welcome to the comic book shakers of the list for the week of August 8th, 2011. We got a special show for you with some really cool books that really highlight the really cool books in the industry, as well as Matt from CovrPrice is going to come on right after we go over these 10 books, and we're going to talk about the new features that are on the CovrPrice website that you'll see in some of the graphics, but I left them up there on purpose so Matt can explain them when he comes on live. So if you have any questions for CovrPrice, make sure you hang around for that. Matt's then they can walk you through everything. They're going to share their screen. But in the meantime, it's Freestyle Friday, baby. This is how we do.
The baddest on the microphone apparatus is here. When I rock a rhyme, often eyes are dropping a tear. It's so beautiful, it's America's landscapes when this man makes lyrics like the syrups that you pour upon your pancakes. My mandate is to grip minds like a handshake. Spit Orlando Lakes and go skinny dip with the fan base. Over any damn breakbeat, I hastily make pastries tastier than anything that Wolfgang makes. So take notes out of suckers, I make coats, lump of some like Bubba Gump, fishing on lake boats. I take jokes and turn the comedy into drama. I'm bagging on your mama, I'm Jeffrey Dahmer. Behind ya, I'm a rhyme writer. Lock, stock, smoking the ganja. Rebuttals befuddle, leaving a puddle of saliva, sillies. You couldn't handle Randall when I throw my grammar at you. It hit your head and you would think I threw a hammer at you. I point the camera at you like Herb Ritz. Develop it, then use the pictures to pick up bird shits. You're nervous as the impervious wordsmiths. Hanging out in Rafa's new crib, come with the verses.
Bars. Shout out to everybody in the live chat welcome to the CovrPrice comic book shakers of the week. JB, say what's good to the people.
Welcome to another fantastic edition of this Shaker Show. I've read this one. These writers are great. The information we're about to drop on you in the next 30 minutes, sit back, relax.
Sit back, relax, put on your headgear. We'll give you a trip through the atmosphere. Gabe, say what's good to the people.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome in. Happy Thursday, Friday Eve. Instead of calling this the Oprah list, we're going to call this the proof of life list because there's some books on here that just you got it. Yeah, you're lucky to get it. So this is cool stuff.
Speaking of Matt and John from CovrPrice, they'll be joining us after we go over this 10, and maybe they'll help us see what's shaking today and answer any of your questions you have. On Wednesday, they made some UI changes to the website and they can cover that. You know, it'll be reflective in some of our graphics. But if you have any questions for CovrPrice, Matt and John will come on and they'll be live and show you what's going on. And if you have any questions about any, I don't know what comes to mind right off the top of the head, but I'm pretty sure you guys will think of something. Once again, this is
staples.
Exactly. Once again, this is the CovrPrice Shakers of the Wiz. This links come to our friends at CovrPrice, focusing on new sales or the most interesting sales found in their exclusive daily Shakers list. It's just changed several times a day, every day, so make sure you check it out to review some of the hottest trending books on the market. If you sign up for a full membership, you too can see all 50 books that are on the Shakers list. I think right now, if you have a full membership through CovrPrice, it also is part of COZ's app. So COZ, when you add books to your thing, it'll use the CovrPrice's price guide evaluation, but you have to be a full-blown CovrPrice membership. I'll let John or Matt explain that to you a bit further later on. But let's kick this off. This is no top 10 list. This is alphabetical, but there's 10 of them. So let's get things started with the letter A. What do we got?
All right. First up on our list, the letter A, we've got Aliens issue number 1, originally published in 1988 from Dark Horse. Now, there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Aliens franchise after seeing the Predator franchise get a new lease on life with the release of Prey on Hulu, which has been getting very good reviews. As a matter of fact, CovrPrice's editors note that it's amazing. Well, the new TV series will be shown on FX and is a prequel to the original Aliens movie that starred Sigourney Weaver. Now, although she nor any of the original cast will reprise their roles, now the good news is that Ridley Scott is attached as the producer, which should start production soon with a 2023 premiere in sight. Now, we covered this book back in March when a 5th print 9.8 sold for a then record $1,025. Well, this week brought another incredible sale of a 9.8 for $2,850 on August 9th. It's game over, man. Game over for finding this book on the down low.
So I totally forgot there was going to be an Aliens show. So for us old school people, we remember the original Alien, right? And then what's his nuts did Aliens, James Cameron, I want to say, right? James Cameron just wanted to do Alien. He turned it more of a sci-fi horror film into this more of an action film, but it'd be interesting as a prequel to Aliens, not Aliens, so it'd be maybe, the people that, are on that platform that gets taken over. Ridley Scott did some interesting things with the last Aliens movie he did. Some people, you either loved it or you hated it. Remember that? I don't know if you guys saw the last one that he did where they were shot into space and there was another. I want to say it was a sequel, but anyway, Ridley Scott is still one of the top-notch filmmakers when he's on top of his game. A lot of it's either you love it or you hate him. It's one of those things. So, Aliens number 1 from Dark Horse Comics from May 1988, CDC 9.8 for a cool 2,850 bonards. All right, let's get patriotic with it, shall we?
Love this cover here. Captain America issue number 1. This is the Adam Hughes Virgin variant. Marvel Comics 2018. This issue marked the start of the Ta-Nehisi Coates run on Captain America. While the run was met with mixed reviews, the covers and variant covers were outstanding. This variant by Adam Hughes was available as an open edition variant. However, this Virgin variant was limited to being a 1 in 500 variant, making this issue hard to find. Given the fact that many stores are unable to make orders of that size, on August 6th, a 9.8 of this Virgin variant sold for a whopping $700, and a near mint fair market value is going for about $100. If you like this cover and don't want to break the bank, the trade dress version goes for much, much more affordable price of about $5.50.
I always dug had Adam Hughes style. I think Frank Cho does as well, where they use really thick outlines on the characters when they draw them.
It gives it that kind of border effect.
Yeah, it gives you that kind of border effect, which kind of makes it jump off the page. That being said, Adam Hughes' internal art, it leaves a lot to be desired. Because obviously when you do a cover, you spend a lot more time doing a cover as opposed to, I think Gabe was saying, or somebody was telling me, like, somebody doing a weekly comic, the panel by panel is a young man's game. Like, these
That's
old
what Adam
cats,
Hughes told me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like these young cats get paid to do covers, and they make quite a good living of it. But it's tedious to do a screenplay and do panel by panel work with writers and all that. But yeah, this is dope. This is Captain America #1, the Adam Hughes version, 1 in 500, pretty much one per store. Came out in 2022 for $700. All right, this has got to be an offer, right? I mean, come on. This is I don't think I've ever seen this before.
I've never seen this before, so this is I want proof of life if anyone claims they have this. Next up, we've got Ninja Scroll issue #1, the Jim Lee cover, originally published in 2006 from DC. Now, long before manga became as popular as it is today, anime on VHS was passed around from one kid to the next. One of the favorites amongst USA anime fans was Ninja Scroll. It was practically required viewing. Now, with a modest print run of almost 17,000, this Wildstorm series was not particularly impossible to find. However, 16 years later, copies are sparse. And that scarcity, mixed with nostalgia, is helping bring this first US comic appearance to a new high of $300 for a CGC 9.8 and $60 for a raw dog.
I remember when Ninja Scroll first came out, and it was, I want to say, God, was I in high school or was I in my early 20s or this and that? And this is back when, we didn't have like Crunchyroll and all these streaming platforms that allowed you to just, openly view anime. I mean, like I always tell the story of the Curse of the Overfiend and how that got passed around in my high school years. And that was the first time I seen really that type of, how do I say? I guess you can call it hentai tentacle animated cartoons, but Curse of the Overfiend really, really messed me. I was like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? Me, a 16-year-old. But anyway, believe it or not, I used to be 16 at one point. You probably always do. I just grew out of the womb at 25. Anyway, Ninja Scroll issue #1. And I was looking at this and I was like, this does not look like Jim Lee. Doing the cover. Am I crazy in thinking that? Did he draw this?
Well, he drew it, but he might have been maybe using a different style, or maybe just kind of didn't take it as carefully as he would. If
it doesn't look like Jim Lee's superhero stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like how he draws Batman and Superman, but maybe he did it on purpose. But like if you were just to say, hey, this Jim Lee cover, I'd be like, I don't know. Where's the signature? I wouldn't believe you. But anyway, Ninja Scroll #1 from 2006, 9.8 for $300. I don't think I've ever seen this in a while, to be honest with you. All right, what do we got next?
Coming up next, one of my favorite shows, Smallville season 11, #1, but this is the second printing from DC Comics 2012. CW's Smallville ran from 2001 all the way to 2011 and gave birth to the entire DC TV universe. Its success spun into series like Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and more. Though it was Smallville that created the longest-running Clark Kent, as played by Tom Welling, providing a fun look at his journey towards becoming Superman. As we frequently note, nostalgia is a massive driver of collectibles right now, and Smallville has the benefit of being visible for several generations. The series was fantastic and fondly remembered. Like many popular TV shows, Smallville ended with Clark donning the classic Superman suit, leaving us wanting more. This series picks up right where the series left off, delivering what could have been season 11. If you're a fan of the series, and this is a must-read when it comes to hard-to-find books, the second print by Gary Frank is definitely one of them. The print one is impossible to find, which typically means that it was less than 800, as sites like Comic-Con usually track sales at and above that. This week's raw sale of $150 marks a new high. However, current listed copies are asking for top dollar, with CGC 9.8s listed for over $2,500. Keep a lookout when hunting in the wild as it flies under the radar for most retailers, and this is a great book to find.
Yeah, I don't think I don't remember. I remember I was never big into Smallville, until I remember watching like the last episode when he finally like opened up his shirt and there was the S on his chest, for the, I believe it was that, or was that Lois and Lois and Clark. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but yeah, I remember Smallville really was the first time I'd seen, like, I remember there was a season of Dr. Fate was on it at one point, right? I mean, like, obviously Lex Luthor was throughout it, but that's pretty, I mean, now to think about, if it would have came out now, I think it would have a greater impact on the aftermarket. I mean, back in 2012, these things weren't moving. They weren't, just because they got announced didn't mean that sales were immediately going to pop off. You know what I'm saying? So, Smallville season 11, issue number 1, the second print, Raw Dog for 150 bonards. All right, here's, you know what? We can't have a list without this book popping on here. Anything Spawn related always pops up. Gabe, check your private chat for a second while JB reads this.
All right, now this one's a little bit different. We're gonna notice the difference. This is Spawn issue number 1, the German Prestige edition, limited to 400 copies, originally published in 1992. Now, some of the more in-demand exclusives have come from Germany, producing some iconic and awesome variants. One of the hardest to find is the German thermocolor changing cover for issue number 5, which reprints issue number 9, the first appearance of Angela, and 11. However, before that exclusive came this Prestige edition of Spawn issue number 1, which reprinted Spawn number 1 and 2. Limited to 400 copies back in 1992, these are almost impossible to find. Its all black cover with the Spawn symbol in the middle is a companion book to the Thermo variant, which is almost identical to this cover, just with a lighter color background. Now, a rare copy hit eBay and flew under the radar for Spawn fans, selling for a new high of $250, which still feels like a great deal. Now, as awareness grows for this cool cover, expect the next sale, whenever that will be, to sell for much more.
Yeah, so as I was talking about, you're going to see some of the graphics they're going to say either raw, no grade, or raw 9.0 to 9.4 for near mint. And those are some of the cosmetic changes that were made to the CovrPrice website. And when Matt and John come on here after we go over these, John will go over and we can ask him about what exactly that means, because before it was fair market values and this, that, and the other, but there's some tweaks that they did due to end user experience response, and so they heard you guys and they listened and made some changes. So they'll be on in about 10 minutes from now. So if you have any questions for them, stick around. So spot number 1, the German Prestige, limited to 400 from 1992, sold for 250 bones in a raw. All right, what do we got up next?
You're muted, Gabe.
Yeah, you're muted, Gabe. Go ahead and
got it. I'm here.
Oh, there you
SpongeBob. All right. I got a little excited about SpongeBob. I forgot to unmute.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's understandable. SpongeBob Comics number 43, released from United Plankton Pictures, Inc., 2015. Here's a little bit of trivia for you. Did you know that SpongeBob Comics number 1 is $100+ book raw, and in a 9.8 goes for over $400? You probably do, as this first appearance of SpongeBob in comic books is highly desired. However, it just doesn't stop there. The series is loaded with fantastic homage covers by the comic book industry's top artists. They were also exceptionally underordered and therefore featured tiny print runs. This particular issue is estimated to be around a mere 6,000 copies. For collectors of homage covers, that means the right buyer may have to pay a premium when comics hit the market. That's exactly what happened with this Incredible Hulk 340 homage, drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz, no less, and sold for a hefty price of $170 raw. It's easy to skip right over these, but maybe don't do that next time.
Yeah, for the average SpongeBob fan or something, they would probably never realize this was like an homage to that Hulk 340 cover, right? Because with the 3 claws and everything, and
or even that it's a Bill Sienkiewicz cover, like.
Oh yeah, Bill
Sienkiewicz. Who knows
Sienkiewicz,
that if you're not a comic book person?
SpongeBob fans from everything from like 3-year-olds to 30-year-old stoners. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure it's like
42-year-olds.
whatever. It's crazy how big SpongeBob. There was even like a SpongeBob live like theatrical show that they were running, like they were doing tours of all over the state. So
It's spun out. Like some of the characters got their own shows. Like Patrick has his own show.
So SpongeBob number 43, United Plankton Pictures. That's hilarious to me. Raw Nearman 9.0 to 9.4 for $170. Homage to, yes, that is the Hulk clause he's supposed to be homaging. All right. This dope one is one of my favorite covers of all the modern Star Wars.
Really? Yeah, this one's good. Next up, we've got Star Wars Adventures issue number 1. The Order 66 cover, supposedly limited to 66, originally published in 2020 from IDW. Now, the Star Wars IP is alive and well, seeing series after series drop on Disney Plus that help flesh out its long-standing characters. Now, one fan favorite series was Obi-Wan Kenobi, using its limited 6 episodes to take a look behind the mask of Darth Vader. Now, this book features the conflicted Vader and a stunning cover from Peach Momoko. Now, its dark colors and morose depiction of Darth Vader is a surefire way to receive fan attention. Make that limited to a reported 66 copies, although there are 72, including the signature series on the CGC census, to commemorate Order 66, and you'll get even more. Now, one fan decided they had to have it, laying down $1,500 for a CGC 9.8, and that is a massive jump of $500 from its last sale in March, and up $300 from its previous all-time high. Now, this book rises with the tide, seeing some gains when information regarding the miniseries reached audiences before dropping. It's seeing a rise again after fans get to see this cover brought to life on the screen, enhanced from the downright creepy depiction of Vader that played out.
Yeah, so I can explain why there's 72 in the census. That means that somebody sold it and they still kept it in their registry. Meaning, like when you add, that's the way, from what I understand, the CGC registry works. Like there's just because you put your number in there doesn't mean that it's part of the registry until you add it to your collection. So that to me at least explains why there's 72. Somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, but that means that somebody added it to their collection, to their registry. Specifically, and it was sold again, and then somebody else added it to the registry, and that's why there's multiples. Because if you don't remove it on there, it doesn't keep it. Because I've seen it before where somebody's had one on the registry, and I add mine, and theirs is still on there. I don't know if that's still the fact, because I got
a question for you. It mentions signature series. So what if someone had a blue label one, right? And then they take it to a show and they get it cracked, and now they got a yellow label one. Whatever happened to the blue label one? Do they take it out? Does someone remove that from the registry?
Only if you send the label back in with it, from my understanding.
Yeah, because normally, I guess they could have taken it and had it slabbed and then reslabbed. That's a possibility.
If the guy buys a 9.8 and he says, "Hey, this is their signing. Let's go crack it, get it signed, and witnessed, and end up with a 9.8 signature series."
Peach Momoko is a pretty rare signature to get. I mean, you don't see them that often. So, I'm not going to do it. Just don't make me. Anyway, Star Wars Adventures number 1, the Order 66 limited to 66. All right, what do we got up next? Definitely an offer.
Yeah, this is definitely a proof of life book right here. This is The Street Where You Live. This was a release from the NAACP in 1960. Selling for a big new high of $18.50 in a CGC graded 9.0 through a 9.4 is this 1960 NAACP produced comic, proving just like fashion, American racial politics are secular. The story involves a man attempting to bolster voter participation in his community, wanting to improve unacceptable conditions in his neighborhood. Fascinating as we're once again battling over voters' rights on a national level, most often inhibited by lower income and minority communities. This comic was poorly received at the time due to stereotypical focus on garbage in a black neighborhood amongst dirt roads and shacks, which didn't reflect accurate depictions of real neighborhoods in 1960. Quick civics lesson. This comic predates the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. It predates the Watts riots and the March on Selma. Black women were not given voting rights until 5 years after this publication in 1965. An excellently drawn comic for its time with good intentions. This back issue is an artifact from an era where race relations in the United States were at a fever pitch, just like the summer of 2020. As much American history as is rare collectibles, this book shows that comics can be more than just marketing gimmicks and variant covers. They can, as was intended with this book, to be a tool of cultural and social evolution. So rare is this comic that not even the NAACP, the book's publisher, have complete intact file copies.
Wow, this has got to be like something you see in a museum or something. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
This is definitely in a museum somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely as time goes by more. You know, I mean, when are you ever going to see that? That's I mean, I would say late 2009. The late 2010s, you started seeing more politicized type stuff, especially with certain movements in the comic community. So, but overtly kind of leaning one way or the other. But back then, for the NAACP to publish their own little comic and send it out, wow. So,
and then for it to be considered a poor representation of that time of Black people, saying that there was like, you can see on the cover here the streets are full of garbage, and they're like, that's not really what it looked like. So that's a very kind of odd situation.
Yeah, and it was sold in a near mint too. So we'll get to that in a minute too, because finding that in a high grade as well. That's another time machine book. All right, so The Street Where You Live from the NAACP 1960, raw near mint sold for 1,850 bones. All right, and what's up next?
All right, man, I've never seen this one before. I've never seen this before. Next up, we've got Transformers Universe, issue number 2, Graham Cracker edition, originally published in 2004 from 3H Productions. Now, Transformers comics have been very topical lately. With Transformers Rise of the Beast due next year in 2023, our favorite robots are in disguise are once again trending. Rare variants that rarely hit the market have been showing up lately. Now, the publisher 3H Productions, created by the Hartmans, who also created BotCon and the official Transformers Collectors Convention, they only lasted for 5 years. Focusing on Transformers comics, they produced some of the smallest print runs for the Transformers franchise. Each issue of this series was printed once a year, for the BotCon creating a painful delay in story. Now, these issues were the first to blend fan favorite characters from Beast Wars, Beast Machines, and the classic Generation 1 characters together, only to brutally kill them off most of the large cast. Now, it hit a bad nerve amongst Transformers fans and Hasbro, who ultimately stripped 3H of the license, leaving the series hanging for years. Now, Graham Crackers is notable for producing some ultra rare variants around 2004 that were specifically sold directly to the main collectors clubs, similar to the Masters of the Universe, and Graham Cracker exceptionally valuable variants for that series. This particular cover, featuring the Beast Wars version of Arcee, is the first sale we've seen at $300 raw. Now, these are rare, but can sometimes be found lingering in the dollar bins.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I'd almost want to say this is like an Arcee bikini cover because it looks like it's flesh underneath her armor. You know what I'm saying? It's like one other time we had a Transformers book on this list. It was remember there was like a contest and then fans sent in their submission for their Transformer and it ended up being on the cover and that was one of the more rare ones as well. But I've never seen this, and we definitely prove it life if you have this as one of your books. So Transformer Universe issue number 2, Graham Crackers 3H Productions, in 2004, sold for $300 in a raw. All right, I'm on one more book, and I'm going to bring on Matt and John here to talk about all things going on CovrPrice. This, everybody should have at least one version of this. You guys should have.
Yeah, let's get everybody on the board with this good old book here with X-Men number 1, Marvel Comics 19 91. I can hear the theme song just looking at the cover. It's been all but confirmed that the X-Men will one day be part of the mainstream MCU. For most collectors, a copy of giant-sized X-Men is probably not a reality. However, getting a copy of X-Men #1 from 1991 is very obtainable. This issue was inducted into the Guinness Book of World Records in 2011 as the best-selling comic book of all time. While there is no definitive number, most speculate that over 8 million copies were sold. Some people point to the five connected cover scheme as the beginning of the comic book bubble collapsing in the 90s. Recently, newsstand versions of cover B featuring Colossus, Gambit, Rogue, and Psylocke, and cover C, which features Wolverine, Cyclops, and Iceman, had some high sales, with cover B going for $626 and cover C going for $500. Keep in mind that with so many copies in circulation, condition and newsstand variants are going to be key. The fair market value for a raw copy is $16.
Yeah, this was kind of the reboot of the X-Men at Jim Lee at the height of his powers and all the hype. I mean, this didn't kill the comic market though, because there was X amount of covers to this, and the '90s was just booming. It was like there was a whole slew of things that led to the bubble bursting, which was speculators, anybody and their mother could be a retailer. I mean, I went when I looked up, the yellow pages for comic book shops in the Bay Area, and I ended up in some dude's garage, and that was apparently his comic book store because he's able to get something. Who was it before Diamond? That Marvel at one point Marvel
Capital
did their
City.
own, Capital City or whomever. They let anybody. I'm talking anybody become a retailer, and it kind of led to the fall because everybody was, I remember there's actually videos of people like standing in line for like a Youngblood #1 saying, I'm going to send my kids to college with this book. It's hilarious. But X-Men #1 cover B on the list. You know what? We had too much hair on the show. So we need to bring in a couple of bald heads on this show to really kind of bring the shine on here. Welcome
Now the
back,
ratio is
John
more
from
acceptable.
CovrPrice. What's going on, guys?
What's up, guys?
Hey, how you guys doing? Yeah, we're here to shine things up a bit.
Now we got 3 bald heads on 2 guys. Well, JB is halfway there, but I won't say anything.
It's there.
Welcome to Lords.
All right, man.
Welcome to Lords of the Head Shaver Club.
Yeah. So we're just going over the Shakers list, and then
Evolution, guys.
Yeah. So there was a couple of things on here that obviously I noticed were different. One, some books just said raw grade, and some books actually said near mint 9.0, 9.4. John, do you want to share your screen and perhaps talk about it? Let me
yeah, for sure.
I will go ahead and highlight you. You're all by yourself now, and just share your screen.
All right, here we go. Slides, share screen. Give me one
minimize
second.
all your porn tabs just in case.
Yeah, get all this closed up.
Oh, this is gonna take a while then.
This might take a while.
Let's see, share screen.
If you have any questions from Matt and John, just drop them into the live chat. If you really want us to answer it, then bribe us with a super chat. But
there you go.
We'll go full screen so you can see it better.
And we'll cover everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I mean, thanks for having us on the show. We love you guys, obviously. And one of the reasons we want to come on is because, as you know, we did this massive kind of update to our price guide. And it kind of fits with the Shaker Show because we could go through Shakers and actually tell you a little bit about like what we did and why it's more precise and all that thing. If people
let's
are
see
interested
what's
in
shaking today, because then I could think there's going to
Right.
be something that you guys can address that's kind of been a pimple on the community. If I
It's
can
got to
say
be
it
in
as
there,
such.
right?
pimples.
Yeah.
So, okay, what do we want to talk about here?
Well, let's look at the Invincible Iron Man book.
Boom.
Because I think there's raw copies of that is sold as well, and then you can go over the kind of difference between slabbed and raw.
Yeah, so I mean, like what we did, if you guys remember, let me see if I have this on the screen behind here. Yeah, the old version of our raw price guide was based on every single raw comic that we had. We didn't have any way to actually see what the condition was because conditions are so subjective, right? Anyone could say, hey, I have a 10.0, right? Usually they don't because the community then kind of, manages it and like, you get returns if you're a seller. But the old version was like this, right? It was just, here's the highest sales of the, that we have, here's the lowest, and here's the current fair market value based on a moving weighted average of the most recent of sales. So it was new, but it included all the conditions. what we did, and this has been our dream to do for a while, and we've been working on this, and it's so freaking hard to do correctly and accurately. So it took us about a year to kind of crack this and then test it and make sure it was right. But now we have 7 different buckets, right, that break it down. And because raw grading is subjective, and we can say then like slabbed comics are less subjective, right, because it's a company that has like, peer reviewed and all that kind of stuff, multiple people rating it. This then allows us to say, okay, if you have a near mint comic, for example, between a 9.0 and a 9.4, will fall this bucket, and you get this fair market value for the comic in your collection, right? And of course, there's near mint plus, there's 7 buckets. And let me jump down to the live site here. And so what we did is now we're pulling the most common raw as our fair market, like the average fair market value. So this is the most comic version of this book raw, right, is near mint. It's going for 674. Most common slab, same thing, is a 9.6. So we don't just say, hey, 9.8, 9.8, 9.8, because if only one person has it and like 150 have like a 9.6, that's the one that's mostly out there in the marketplace. So we wanted to be as fair as accurate and accurate as possible. As you go down, of course, we show all the variants, and we've updated their little, we call this the value ribbon. Because tech companies always add stupid little names to their things because we have no idea. Yeah. That's like the box thing with the numbers, so we don't know what to call it. But then down here, so we do this. We call out the fair market value now. We've created this thing because, again, a fine, for example, might not have come to market since, 2019. And we don't want to confuse people and have them come to the site and go, hey, this is, how come this is lower or higher? If it's a fresh sale, right, it's going to be bold. If it's a stale one over 90 days, it's going to show up as like a kind of a grayed out version. So at a glance, you'll be able to look at this and say, okay, well, here's the freshest sale. Here's the most popular. And of course, you can always go into the sales data and see the fair market value and dive into seeing what the sale was, when it was there, and all like that.
And this is based off of descriptions from whatever site that's selling them, right? We go as best as the data you can gather from the seller, correct?
Exactly. And, the way we look at it is this. We created these buckets because if we just said, hey, a 9.6 raw is going for this much, there's subjectivity in how a seller is going to sell their comics. But because of and where we pull from, we pull from 5 different marketplaces. Where we pull from, it's not just sellers. Sometimes the retailer will say this, they'll grade it themselves and say, this is a 9.6. And so it's a little bit more accurate. In the long term, this evens out, and this is as accurate as you could possibly find with the ranges allowing for variance in that. So
I have one question for you, because I had a graphic from earlier. When I pulled up this spawn number 1 on the CovrPrice website, it said raw, no grade. Can you say what that is, or is that just the database hasn't touched yet, or is that something?
No, that's a great question. So when a no grade comes in, so if here on the price guide, you'll see no grade at the bottom. What happens is I'll go into the sales data. At the bottom here, these are the comics that we couldn't accurately find the grade for. Now, we didn't just want to throw out that data because we think that's really useful, right? You might go, hey, here's a $500 sale on 8.6. We don't want to just throw that out because we still think it's valuable, but we couldn't actually take out a grade information like this, the listing or the seller or the retailer. They didn't actually put any grading information on it. So it'd be irresponsible for us to say like, hey, this is the 9.8. This is this aggregating bucket at the bottom.
So that means for those of us who bought on eBay before, the person that always says, I'm no professional grader, look at the pictures. And then, they won't, you know what I'm saying? All the time.
The CovrPrice team hates those guys.
I've been selling comics for 20 years, but I'm not a professional grader. Take a look at the pictures. I'm like, you can at least make a guesstimation. Yeah.
Exactly.
As we get better, like, it's funny, we dream of the day where we'll be able to look at the image like programmatically and say spine tick, fox, corners, foxing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're dreaming. That's still, in the future. But our goal, Matt and I talk about this all the time, like our goal is to be as responsible and as accurate as possible. And every day our team is literally working out ways and fixing little things on the back end to make it as accurate as possible. And the rest of this year, you're going to see, we finally kind of found our groove, and we're kind of really happy about it because moving forward, we have big updates planned almost every month moving forward. And of course, the big partnership with CLZ in September. Where
I
they're
just brought that up during the Shaker Show. Can you explain to the folks a bit more what the CLZ feature is?
So about a year ago, CLZ reached out to
let's
us.
look at some more books too while we
Yeah,
talk.
sorry.
Yeah, because there's a book on the Shakers list that a few people have been asking about.
But no, keep going. It's just fun to look at other books as we're scrolling through.
Yeah, I can talk like this. This has been life for like the last year or so. So I'm
Hey,
like
look at
geeking out on it. But yeah,
our friend from Nearing Nirvana, that 8 Billion Genies book, is on there.
Yeah,
yellow
I mean
one?
that book is doing crazy things. I would have never expected that book to do what it's doing right now.
And that's a store retail variant too. Yeah,
I bought one just because I'm a Nintendo fan, right? And I'm a huge fan of Super Mario 3, like most people from our generation. So it just hit that right nerve, right?
Yeah, it hit the perfect combination of cool cover, as well as been optioned to be a show, I believe, on Amazon or Netflix or one of the two, right? The perfect kind of combination of the two. But so explain to us what the CLZ thing is while you're going through this, and exactly how they can take advantage of it.
So CLZ's been around for like 20 plus years. They have a huge community, huge following on like Facebook and stuff like that, and they've been great partners so far. Alwyn and his team reached out to us about a year ago and just said like, hey, we had a partner that was showing values. It didn't work out. We're looking to find, you guys keep coming up in conversations. What are you guys doing? And so after like literally a year or so of talking and working it out and building up a support, we're making it happen. We're moving forward. And so this partnership is going to be, if you are an unlimited CovrPrice member, you can come to our site, you can put your collection there, you can see values, you can see our content and everything, or you can go to CLZ, have them, if you have an existing membership with them, being a CovrPrice member, you can now have it, we're going to send you like a little token that you can link to our site, and your entire CLZ collection, all the books you look up, will have CovrPrice values there. So you don't have to just use our website, you can use their website. And they have an app, everybody, because everyone asks us when we're going to have an app. They have an app. They have a collection section. They have a lot of great products that you can choose from. And now it's going to be powered from a value standpoint by CovrPrice.
Nice.
Yeah. We're excited about it.
Yeah, let's see what else is shaking today, since we see the usual suspects on here. And might as well bring that up since everybody's talking about it.
I mean,
people
are asking about it in there.
How do you track it? I mean, are you going to show a sale for $1 million, or it's not going to happen? Or do you wait till that gets canceled?
So right now it's an interesting book, right? We know there's troll bidding, right? That are pushing this book up to, right now there's a copy at over 20 grand.
That's ridiculous.
Because
it seems legit to me.
It's legit to me. Yeah,
that's a steal.
It's fascinating though, because so a lot of these books are getting troll bidding, but then what's happening? There's a lot of people that are seeing this as real, and then now are buying the other copies for $600-700 because they think that like, oh my god, I got to get in this book now before it hits 20 grand. So now it's like the troll bidding is actually giving money to the people that they're complaining about. So it's kind of backfiring because it's literally moving all the other copies. It's a mess. This whole book is a mess. So what we're doing with this, obviously we're not going to bring in that 20 grand if it sells. We recognize that it's fake. Now, if there's suddenly four of these and someone says, hey, I bought one, then we might have to look at it twice, but we're only putting in sales that are absolutely confirmed. And we're definitely monitoring that stuff.
I know you can't say which 5 sites you pull on, but we can say what sites you don't pull sales data from, and that's Whatnot, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we were doing it at the beginning, but the problem, the reason we stopped was there was no way for our users to verify those prices. So like, the sellers or people on the show would send us screenshots. We did it like for $2 and we pulled them because we're like, look, this isn't proof enough. We need something that our users can go then triple check themselves. And you can't do that on Whatnot. There's no API, there's no sold listings. So unfortunately, it was just, even though they're getting top dollar for some of their books, like this book was already hitting 750 on Whatnot, just raw. bring those sales in. So.
Yeah, we get emails from people all the time saying like, "Hey, I bought this book and it's the highest value I have ever bought it. This book has ever sold for. Here's the seller's name and number. Can you put it into your system?" And we're like, wow, that's really nice of the seller and you to come together to want to price up there. And so we're constantly, and I'm not saying, that they're necessarily scamming us or anything like that, but we can't again, we have to be trustworthy and we have to be as accurate as possible. So for us, like Matt was saying, we have certain standards. Like if there's a sale that we put in CovrPrice, it has to be verifiable in a public way. It has to have an archive someplace. It has to be trackable. And unfortunately, like a lot of the social media, like auctions and whatnot auctions, they aren't at a place where they're tracking and archiving that. It's just like you're there, you saw it, and then it's gone. So we're trying to find obviously we'd love to find a way to bring in as many sales data points as possible. And we'll continue to work towards that. But at this point, it's just a little Wild Westy.
Because right now you also have Shortbox, you also have MySlabs. And, I as far as I know, they don't have a sold database, right?
Yeah, and the second they do, we'll bring those in. And we've had conversations actually with all of them that said we would like to bring your sales in. And we also, just to go back when it comes to sold prices, we also don't bring in, like if a seller has zero feedback, we usually typically kick those sales out.
I think the most recent thing, besides that UF4 book, was maybe 2 years ago, the Marvel Preview Miles book was reaching ridiculous numbers, and it seemed to be the same guy buying them all. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we actually pulled out the first sale that started the storm was like a big $1,400 raw sale, I think. And we pulled that sale because we thought it was wrong. But then what it did was kick started real sales that were starting to climb up to that price. Because the sale did confirm that it went through, we brought it back in. And then that book has been hot ever since. So we do monitor stuff like that, but there's only so much, how many sales do we bring in, John? Like a week, roughly?
About 10,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's it? Oh, come on. The market is collapsing on itself. So, it's a bubble. Come on.
So one thing we're trying to fix is, so we get this all the time. People are reaching out and saying, hey, this one comic seems to be selling a little too high or a little too low. And we go and look in and we're like, oh, crap, this one pulled in a original art, or this is one of the variants actually ascribed to the standard cover. And we have algorithms and team members looking at the site daily, trying to scrub that out. And it slips through because it's the way it's listed, the way our system pulls it in. That's the focus of this year, is to clean that up, to make sure that we want to be as accurate as possible. We don't want to mislead anybody. That's not our intention ever. But stuff happens. So stuff kind of slips through, but we're going to be fixing that and doing a huge focus, I think, on that moving forward.
By the way, I like that Spawn mini right there. That book is really cool.
This guy?
Top row.
Top right.
That's far right.
Oh.
So that was included. Oh man, I think it was like 2005. It was included in a Best Buy anniversary collector tin.
Wow.
So it's a mini comic. But this book is super hard to find. And what was the price? It just sold for 500.
The last one was like 525. Yeah.
9.0.
Was it part of a toy or something? Was I was
no, just a DVD set. It was a steel
DVD
case
set.
Anniversary steel set.
Well, like we say in the show, Spawn is like herpes. It shows up on our list like every 6 months. I mean, it's wait till they ever release a live action trailer. It's just gonna go crazy.
It is the number one book in our collection. It is the one book that people have the most of. It's also the number one best-selling book for the past 4 years in aftermarket sales.
John, pull up that black and white. That's the fourth one. Yeah, that one used to be the one to get. 1,800 now. Now it seems like it's probably not even that much. What's the highest known value in a graded copy? Yeah, this was a reprint.
The highest is 4,700.
Yeah, that's
I think that book released 5 years after Spawn 1 came out.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Todd does another one where he says Spawn number 1, record-breaking comic. He sure does saying that. But that's a ton. I'm surprised that there's that many that's sold. Are those recent? What is the newest sale?
So the newest one was just the first of this month, actually, 8/1. And then it jumps back to March of this year, then February. So about almost one a month, and then down to September of 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a fun book.
Yeah, can I show you guys one thing also that we've
also,
updated?
one more question before
sure.
while you're doing that. Have you guys figured out how to do yellow labels yet, or place a value on it? Because since a lot of books are getting signature series.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a wild card because it's people. It's easy to track like Todd McFarlane, so we could do that. Like Spawns, like for that signed one right there that we're looking at, that gold one. There was 2 sets were sold at San Diego Comic-Con. There was a blank one and a signed one. That's easy for us to track. We could put that in there and put them in their own classifications. Todd's stuff, he usually only signs stuff by themselves, but it gets a little tricky when there's another signature on it, or there's a sketch, or then we have to have separate entries, and then it becomes a little wonky. So we have to just figure out how we're going to do these.
Yeah, because it's always subjective what the value of a signature is, right? If you think about, and back in the day, Stan Lee was all the rage, and when he passed away, Stan Lee books were getting all new premium because he wasn't signing anymore. But there was a point where you could get a Stan Lee signature for like maybe the highest at one point, and maybe Gabe can correct me on this, was 100, 150. Was at the end of his career, I think, was right around that amount, and then paid double, triple that in the aftermarket. It was how much it was looking for, but nowadays there's tons of yellow labels on there, and now there's yellow labels that are coming from online retailers even before they hit. You buy them even before they've been signed, because they've been pre-sold, I guess, as such. Yeah.
I mean, I think with yellow labels that's weird is if there's multiple signatures. Like, how do you value one that has one signature versus 3, and then what creators of those 3 is the one that really matters? It really gets into a really minutia of things.
It does. And even to this point, Todd signed with 3 different colors for this book. It was red, blue, and green. And we were like, should we put them in like 3 different classifications? And they were all going for the same price, so it didn't matter. So we just put it in one. But what we'll do in the future, we do have all the signed sales since we started. We still have those in our system in the back end. So what we'll eventually do is maybe just have a signature series tab that just lists them out. Like, here's the book, here's the sold price, and then you can add it to your value. But it wouldn't probably be a proper price guide for that signature.
Yeah, upcoming features are going to be like Matt's saying, like we'll pull in a signature series and just say, hey, this is what it's going for. But also, you're going to be able to go into your CovrPrice collection and add your own estimated value, and with a little checkbox saying when a new value from CovrPrice gets pulled in, use that instead. So if you don't see value,
$1 million then.
Yeah, my collection.
Right.
I don't throw my buddy KRS Comics under the bus, but he has a 9.8 that's signed the last time I saw by 15 different creators, and it's still kept at 9.8. I think that's the one I've seen most, because this goes back to his facilitating days from years and years ago. He used to get, it was one of those like blank anniversary covers I want to think of, but that was just a frame. Right, so he would get different artists to sign it, or it was the Marvel book that had all the different artists that were kind of printed diagonal, in line, and he was getting each artist at each. He would go to each convention, and he would get them signed, and he was a facilitator, so it would keep the yellow label, because if you already have a yellow label and you get a facilitator to add another signature on it, it keeps the yellow label on there, which is the cool part. Yeah,
that is freaking cool.
So I'd love to see you do that. Hey, here, there's 20 tabs for signatures. Let's see what else is shaking today, man. Let's see. Since we already discussed the Ultimate Fallout book ad nauseum, and going forward, hopefully.
Actually, I don't. Did we talk? Was that good enough? Did we cover it enough?
Yeah, I mean, is there any more questions you guys have on Ultimate Fallout 3? I mean, this may come up again in Boston. Apparently, they're doing it again. Matt did a great piece on it when we covered it on the CovrPrice Top 10. Bleeding Cool had great cover on it, where they checked with the Marvel sources, and they said Marvel doesn't agree with it, but it doesn't. Marvel hasn't implicitly told them no yet. From what I've understood.
There's been no formal response.
From the retailers that I know that work big with Marvel, Marvel has not sent them an email saying to cease and desist. Put it that way. And in the scheme of things, 750 copies to them is a small bucket than what they produce on a weekly basis. If you think, you know what I'm saying, I was just
right.
I meant, if it like Matt was saying, it's, if anything, it's, Black Flag and CDC were maybe complicit in the way that they graded. I mean, how did something with 4 staples end up being a 10.0 or 9.9?
I don't feel like CDC was complicit in it. I think they just get so much in front of them that they just weren't paying attention. was
They'll Ron Burgundy read the news sometimes. They're
Right.
literally fuck you, San Diego.
I
And
think, I think they just saw it, pushed it through, because I think it was based on the timing of when they got them graded. That was probably express, which means they were under, whoever the grader was said, here's a stack, you got to get them done by the end of the day, probably, right? And I'm sure they're just like, 9.8, 9.8, 9. That's my guess on it.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything malicious. I think they just weren't paying attention.
This happens about once a year. I remember the same kind of conversation happened when they were doing on-site grading at Emerald City Comic-Con. And people were getting high-grade books because they were on-site grading. And then they said they compared it to their 9.6s, and they were like, my 9.6s doesn't have any, imperfections on it, yet my 10.0 I got for on-site grading does. And so, that was it. Question from Geek Stock here. Price question for the CovrPrice peeps. That's you two. Will you allow syncing between COZ and CovrPrice? I think you addressed that a bit, but I'll let you elaborate on it.
Yeah. So currently, CovrPrice will bring in. If you have a CSV file, we will work with you to import your collection. It takes like 4 to 6 days, and we typically can match 60 to about 95% of the collection that you give us, and we'll bring it in for you. On the table is a discussion of like what's the best user experience for people using our two systems, right? There is obviously competitive advantages for the businesses to have their own, both CLZ and CovrPrice, to have their own user base, and we would never share like user information with each other like that, because that's confidential. But we are merging our databases in a sense that we will be able to say like for like, this book is in CovrPrice and this book is in CLZ. So there's definitely an opportunity for us to make that more seamless. But it's more of a business decision of whether or not we are going to. But at present, you could import stuff into CLZ. If you wanted an export of your CovrPrice collection, you could put it there, or you can take it and put it into CovrPrice and still benefit. So to be determined, I guess is the best way to answer.
Yeah,
that.
I actually was one of the early people to do it. I exported my CLZ database, really easy. Exports into a relatively small file when you think about it, and then they were able to upload it. It's like almost a text file that's less than 100K. It's really small, and like you said, it is pretty accurate. Just like it's pretty easy to add a book on the CovrPrice. But for whenever you question things, that if you don't like what's on the marketplace, it's kind of your fault, or not maybe you specific, but the CovrPrice is a reflection of what legitimate on-site places are selling it for. This is not including new auction houses outside of eBay and the established ones that we can't, CovrPrice can't track their sales. So I meant, when we reported on Ultimate Fallout 4 on Monday, when the report came out, there was only 16 copies sold, and legitimate sites. I don't want to say legitimate is probably not the correct word of saying it, but places where they have API where you could pull actually sales data from, right? But as of now, I think if you look it up, there's maybe 32. Is that what it says? Sold?
For this one?
Yeah.
34.
Yeah, 34 sold, and we know there's a ton more that's sold than 34. So just take that into account. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they do it again at Boston, people are going to have the same conversation, because all indicators are they have some other books that they're going to do it on. I spoke to some of my retailer friends, said, look, they don't want to do that. And, it's how you spend your dollars is a reflection, right? Just like the first appearance of Corona. People were pumping it up, and guess where that book is now? Well, you look back on it, nobody cares about the first appearance of Corona.
I remember you were upset about that one.
Unless you're a big fan of coronavirus, and I guess you can get the first appearance of Corona. Let's see. The only issue, let me question here from Moonbase Alpha, is the only issue I'm seeing is that Raws marked as 9.6, 9.8 on CovrPrice often have no price, likely because Nearpin Plus isn't often in the seller's descriptions. Not sure if there's a way around that.
Yeah. Let me address that real quick. So right here, if you look, this is the value ribbon. And if this is pulling from a raw bucket, it'll say raw, the bucket, like near mint or VG, and then price. If it just says raw and no description, that means it's coming from the no grade category, because there is no actual values in one of the buckets. We don't have any condition information on it. So it shows both. Now, if you go to your collection, so you go to the collection section, it loads, you go into it. what happened is, it's interesting. Before we did this launch, right? All the raw values, you could go in and say, oh, I have a raw 9.8 in my collection. And then the fair market value for all raw comics was being applied to that and saying, okay, that's an estimate of what it's worth for a raw comic, but it didn't, consider condition. Now that the system's more precise and you have a comic in here saying raw 9.8 and there isn't any bucket, we didn't apply a price to it. So it says 0. Now, we realize some of the people's collections, it's funny. Overall, this move, we just did the numbers this morning. Overall, this move added $6 million to the collective collections in CovrPrice. $6 million. The reason for that is it's more precise. If you have a 9.8, instead of it being the lower value, now it's like, oh, here it is. It's a 9.8 or a 9.6 or whatever. So overall, it's been a positive kind of move. But there are a number of collections who people were putting in raw 9.8, raw 9.8, raw 9.8, and now their collection dropped in value dramatically because those now have no sales. So we thought about it and we're like, crap, well, we don't want to, that sucks. We don't want your collection to have no value for something that you placed in. So next week, we're launching a fix. So Moonbase, don't worry, it's going to be totally taken care of. What's going to happen is anything. So if you say like you have a raw 9.8 and there's no sale for that condition bucket, what you're going to see is we're going to pull the most common value and apply it to that comic. So if we don't have that information, we'll do what we were doing before, but a little bit better. We'll find the most common value and say, boom, that's an estimate of what this is worth. So again, that's going to bring your value up. And right here, for example, like when I look at this, I can say, like, I can look at my collection and say, okay, this Edge of Spider-Verse that I have, I haven't put a grade on it because I don't know what it is. This is pulling the most common value, which happens to be the near mint. But over here, I have this Invincible. I'm still pissed off at this Invincible because it came with printer marks on it. And I was like, back in the day, I'm like, oh, this is never going to be worth anything. That's my number one comic.
Yeah, right.
So mad. Anyway, here it says raw 9.6. That's because I went into it in my collection. Here, I'll click into it. Went down here and said, oh, it's a raw 9.6. And so now it can more accurately pull the value for that, right?
Yeah.
So long story short,
it's like a 9.0.
Shut up, Matt. Quit looking at my collection.
You're overinflating your own price tag.
I had a question from Comic Book Countdown who says they have their collection stored at Comic Book Realm. Is there a relatively easy way to transfer my collection to CovrPrice from Comic Book Realm? I didn't know that they even had one, but
yeah, I didn't know they had one either, to be honest. If they have an export feature, export it. As much information. What we need is series title, issue number, variant information if it is a variant, and then series year. The series year is really important because obviously there's some series that have multiple years and we can't just willy-nilly throw things at the system. If you can export that and send it to us in a CSV file, we'll work with you to see what we can do. Send it to me, John at CovrPrice, and I'll .com.
Or info at CovrPrice if you can't remember it.
Or info at CovrPrice, yeah. I'm gonna get all these emails.
Yeah, that's great. You can stop sharing now, and then we'll leave it at that. Since let me see, just
right
stop
on.
sharing. I know.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and Chucky, if you see something wrong with the pricing, just reach out to us and give us some examples so we could look into it. Because there are some things you want to do. We get a lot of emails saying, "Hey, your prices are wrong on here," because they're looking up eBay sales, which is almost always wrong. But we triple check a lot of our sales and make sure that we're bringing in the actual price sold. So a lot of people will be like, "Hey, you missed this big sale." No, we got it, but it sold for $5,000 less, or So a lot
if you wanted a raffle on Facebook, don't say, "Hey, this is the raffle price I bought it for on Facebook," because who knows who raffled.
Or like best offer things on eBay where you don't really see what it went for.
So we actually, for every single best offer, we quarantined every best offer until we could triple check
the accuracy
sale on there.
Yeah.
So we go through those by hand a lot of the time.
It's funny. A lot of people will see a higher sale and they're like, "Hey, CovrPrice, you undervalued it." We're like, no. That's not what it sold for. This is what it actually sold for. So we're not trying to
say 1,000 and accept buy a best offer, and somebody actually bought it for $750. So it's not.
So
really...
our goal is to actually, if you click it, like one of the future updates, if you click on the sale, it'll say listed at $850, shows as $850. Actual sale was,
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
So that way we'll show the work a little bit more. So that way, if people are like clicking through, it'll have like a little flag on it, shows on as this online, but it's actually
So if any of our friends from Shortboxed or My Slabs are watching, I'm pretty sure you guys have already conversations with John and Matt. You guys are selling a lot of stuff. In the future, anything besides comic books? Or are we just sticking to comic books? Are we going to sports cards, video games?
I've been telling John, it's the running joke I keep asking for sports cards, but we got to get this.
About a year ago, Matt was like, okay, comics are awesome. I love comics. Let's do sports cards. I'm like, let's figure out comics first. We're still working on it.
Well, I mean, you can pull just graded sports cards. You know, that would be easier.
Well, no, we can do raw. The system is the way the system's built was designed to pivot to another platform, because the whole system is built for that. It's just raw. When you're dealing with cards, it's a completely different you got to track box cards, sealed wax. Great.
I need I need to know what this is worth. This is a Gem Mint 10.0. This is a Ghost Rider from 1995. I have no idea if this, but it's a 10.0. I have no idea what it's worth.
I mean, just imagine like every single card. If you go to let's say 2022 NBA Prism, you'll go into there's your hobby boxes, your there's a ton of different boxes.
Or think about Vivo and the NFT values that they have built in.
That and each card has a ton of variations on top of it. So one card, there's one basically 2 or 3 different rookie cards in just one box that have a bunch of variations. It's a beast to track sports cards.
So NFTs are next then, right?
Yeah, and once we've kind of corner our cover the comic books thing, we'll probably move out to other collectibles and stuff, and and grow from there. Hopefully,
we gotta get this one perfect first.
Yeah, and just to call out, this is the first of many new updates this year. We're really finally excited to be able to have the manpower and the resources to do that. And it's because of the people who are signed up for memberships and are helping us support that team, because this doesn't just happen. This is not like a hobby site. This is 25, 30 people, including volunteers, full-time employees, trying our best to make this thing as usable and helpful as possible, and to actually make an impact on the comic industry. That's our goal. We're huge fans. We're comic book, collectors. So it's going to get better and better and better, and we're really excited.
Somebody
come
sent
back
John
in a year
an Invincible #1 9.8. Well, come on,
please,
you can't let him
I'll trade you mine.
Pretty sure Kirkman is sitting on
you can maybe
100
do the Larry variant for $600.
I don't want it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, really appreciate Matt and John coming on. I hope you guys are our full subscribers. It's $6.99 a month. It's the cost of a freaking McRib value meal, right? If you get a Coke and soda,
or a comic book, almost.
Sometimes it's $10 cover price.
A comic book.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. All right, boys and girls, thanks for joining us for the Shakers. If you have any questions for Matt and John, feel free to reach out to info@coverprice.com. They can answer any questions you have. For Gabe, JB, this is TiVo. Until next time, we'll see you Tuesday for the Cover Price Top 10. Until next time, boys and girls, keep digging in them long boxes. Peace out.
Shake and make it, pull it back. Oh my God.
The world's 3 greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Their mission, to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Now that's a name I've not heard.
In this, you shall know that the Lord is upright.
Shake and bake and pull it back.
In this, you shall know that the Lord is upright. In this, you shall know that the Lord is
Box!
Go on and get some, boys.
What the heck is the deal? I'm the best there is.
in this. You shall know that the Lord is
What's in the box?